I'm sitting here with Bobby Owens, inducted into the East Coast Surfing Hall of Fame back in 2020. I think I got that right.
I think so. It was just prior to the pandemic.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you started your surfing career here in Florida?
That is right. And the East Coast Surfing Association, 1970, got my start. Bernie Crouch, you just interviewed prior, he held a contest when the Owens family first showed up in Daytona Beach in 1970, and that was my first place trophy, and that motivated me, and that got me inspired. And my brothers and I competed in the USA for the next 2 years and went through the 1A, 2A, 3A, and then graduated right up to the East Coast Championships in 1972.
So how did you end up in Hawaii?
So like I was saying, we got to Daytona in 1970. We stayed 2 years, and our family all got homesick to move back to Hawaii because we had lived there previously. My dad was in the service, and we grew up on Schofield Barracks in the late 60s. And that's how we got to know the Benson family. And that's where we first got exposed to surfers like the Ical family, Butch Van Arsdale, and they all used to come over and watch the Colonel slides.
Right.
And that was our introduction into our surfing lifestyle. And then we moved to Florida in 1970. And then 72, we returned. And when we returned in 1972, all the Florida surfers would come over and stay at our house.
And you've been there ever since?
Yeah, we've been back there ever since. With the exception of 10 years in Santa Cruz, I was managing a store in Santa Cruz for Patagonia.
That's great. You went up there for a while.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that cold water?
Luckily I was young enough then to deal with it, and the wetsuits had improved. The chest zippers came out with the double overlock, and that made things better. I was young enough to deal with it, and Santa Cruz is great because the waves are consistent there, and you can surf all year round. And the store where I worked was close, and where I lived, it was actually a very good gig. And my son was living over in Nevada, and I would drive over the Sierras every 2 weeks to see him and take him snowboarding. And then he would come over and visit me in the summers. So it worked like that for 10 years. And then they started doing the Masters contest.
Right.
In the late 90s. And
I lost to you in Tabarua.
I probably lost to you a few times as well. There were some good heats.
Well, talking about a few of those, we were part of one of the most important events, point of your history, in that MR wins his first world title in the World Cup in '79.
That's right.
And both you and I were in the semi-finals.
That's right.
MR got you.
Yeah.
But I got Shane Aran, and that gave the chance for MR to win the world title.
There was a deciding factor, Haleiwa or Pipeline, during that era. But yeah, Haleiwa was obviously great. Always seemed to have nice solid surf for that event. And getting to the semifinals and surfing against MR was kind of a milestone for myself. And
we surfed in quite a lot of, if I think back to that time, through the years, we surfed in a few heats together on the North Shore in that era of the mid '70s, in the early '80s.
Yeah, it's interesting because back then it was always based on 3 waves,
right?
And now everything's based on 2 waves. And I tend to think about on how many events where if I just caught one more wave, everything would have changed during that event. And if you did that now, you were doing the right thing.
Well, you used to play the law of averages, if you remember.
Yeah.
If you got 3 7s, it beat 1 10 and 2 5s, right?
That's true. Yeah.
You were always looking for that third wave.
And wave selection counted, and the size of the wave counted. Criteria was definitely different back then.
So let me ask you, what did it mean to you when you got inducted into the East Coast Surfing Hall of Fame?
I think for me, it kind of really put things in perspective because I really valued my years in Florida when I was young. And, it was like I was trying to express during my speech, and I got kind of emotional because winning the contest through the ESA and winning the East Coast Boys in '72, it was just a perfect launch pad to return back to Hawaii and surf in the HSA with Michael Ho and all those guys.
I was just going to say, had to be Michael Ho in there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, when you look at all those finals in the early 70s, our names just switch around from first through fourth or fifth, you know, each contest, whether it's Makaha or Chun's or Haleiwa. But yeah, I like those early years.
Larry would have been in that mix too, right? A little bit.
Larry, Buzzy Kerbox. Oh, there's
Dane.
Oh yeah, some guys were a little bit younger. Some guys like Earlman was a year older. So we kind of shifted from the boys to the juniors division. Sometimes you'd be in the boys and sometimes you'd be in the juniors, depending on things, you know.
You think about those names we just mentioned. That was a legendary crew of that time.
It was. Yeah, it definitely was.
Because that was the next generation after the Hackman, Lopez, BK. You guys were the next crew.
I've got a photo. My dad always shot photography from early on, and right before we left Hawaii in the late '60s, we have a photo on Queens Beach where it's kind of a dark photo, but you can see Larry Bertleman, Michael Ho, and my brother Chris. All of us are in this photo at the Queens meet, you know. And at that particular time, we didn't know each other very well. We're all Grongs, you know. And then, like I said, we left for Florida for a couple of years and then came back.
So we had someone bring up the 74 U.S. Championships, and you qualified from here, right?
Yeah, I qualified actually from Hawaii. You know, like the important contests at that time were like the Ala Moana Bowl states and then
getting on your Hawaiian team.
Right, all the HSA contests, which are similar to the ESA contests, right? So, and that was the big contest then, was the U.S. Championship.
Right.
And
it was the same for us in Australia.
Yeah, and then he brought up Chris Gardner's name, and Chris Gardner and I are longtime friends. And Chris is a longtime Jacksonville kid who we met probably in Cape Hatteras around 1972. And then his family ended up in Hawaii. We ended up back in Hawaii. Mark Fu and JB Falbu, who we mentioned, it all kind of just went on from there.
All the guys of our era.
Yeah.
We'll see you there tonight, Bobby.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to it.